My parents had sent me to my grandfather's place for the weekend because they were going away. I didn't really like him. He was always stern, and I never felt like he liked me. But back then, I had no choice. My grandfather's house was old, dark, and always smelled a bit like rotten wood and dust. I still remember walking up the stairs and settling into the room that was meant for me. It was always the same: an old bed, a stiff, uncomfortable chair, and the massive wardrobe in the corner that always creaked as if it was breathing from the inside. That first night I heard it, a faint, irregular scraping sound. It came from the hallway. I thought it was the wind or maybe the old house ghost people sometimes talked about. But the longer I listened, the clearer it became. It was footsteps, slow, heavy footsteps, drawing nearer to the room. I pulled the covers over my head and tried to stay quiet, but I couldn't stop listening. The footsteps came closer, and then it suddenly went silent. A heavy breath, and then a cold, black hand slid under the door. I couldn't see anything, but I could hear it dragging across the floor as the hand moved. I jumped out of bed, ran to the door, and screamed for my grandfather. But when I entered the room, no one was there. Everything was quiet. No scraping, no hand under the door. Everything was just as it had always been. I thought it was a nightmare, but over the next few nights it got worse. I heard the footsteps more clearly each time, getting closer, and eventually the furniture started to move. The chair where my grandfather always sat began rocking by itself, and the scraping continued as though someone was trying to crawl out of the wardrobe. One particularly cold night when I was back in the room, I heard the wardrobe open. A dull, slow squeak. I went closer and saw the wardrobe open by itself, even though no one was there. I knew I was about to see something, but what I saw I couldn't understand. There, in the wardrobe, stood my grandfather, but he didn't look like the man I knew. His face was twisted, pale and lifeless, his eyes wide and empty. He didn't move, but he stared at me as though waiting for me. Then, with a soft crack, his face began to twist even further, as though his skin was tearing apart. His eyes rolled back and a cold, hollow laugh filled the room. I ran out of the room, stumbled down the stairs, and barricaded myself in the living room. When I called my parents the next morning and told them what happened, they just laughed and told me not to make such a fuss. "It's just a child's imagination," my mom said. "You've been keeping too much to yourself." But I knew what I'd seen, and the worst realization came later. My grandfather was never really dead, not in the way you'd expect. Something had stayed behind from him, something dark that had settled in the corners of his house. No one believed me, and that was the worst part, because it kept happening every time I was in that house, but no one ever believed me.